minute. Anyways, what it is, you guys, it is Yo Girl Cadillac. I am Cadillac Dixon. I'm the drama like prison wife. I'm legally blind artist that is rapping and painting for justice. To see justice before all face to black. Yes, it's your girl Cadillac. Anyways, I ain't gonna do too much talking. We just came from Margaritaville. We went out for my sister's birthday, and I'm tired. 10:30, like 4 p.m. I don't even feel like finishing this shirt. Here's the shirt. But I can't give up now. I gotta stay up. I'm tired though. So we're not gonna really talk. I'm just gonna go through. Y'all know we are working on Danny Collins hand painted T-shirt. My first hand painted T-shirt. I'm doing it in front of people. So I've never done it in front of anybody, except for like my family around the house, and they don't give two squats about it like that. They're like, yeah, that's cute up, whatever. Um, so I'm just gonna set the camera up, and then I'm just gonna paint while we watch a few of his TikToks. I'm gonna try not to chime nothing in because I do a little too much talking when I try to chime in. Okay, so let's just set this up and get into it. It's dark. I don't know. Maybe one day I get it together. It's so bright in the bathroom, but it's coming out dark on the camera. Okay, let's get him playing. Yeah, while I set this up. And then the last one was so freaking pixelated, so I don't even know if these are coming out anyway. We'll see.
Itself is beyond repair and needs to be dismantled and rebuilt from the ground up. What is law enforcement tasked to do? To enforce laws, to protect,
and I'm gonna like each one of these.
How much crime does law enforcement actually prevent or solve? Very little. We solve murders at a 50% rate in the United States.
Wow.
That's horrible. And many of the other violent crimes and crimes that need to be solved often go unsolved. And they're definitely not being prevented. But as each year passes, we militarize our police. We continue to give them more power to abuse. We're building a cop city in Atlanta, Georgia. I humanize every person behind the badge. I do not believe all cops are bad. I believe law enforcement is a major cog in the wheel for the prison industrial complex. It is used to provide jobs and prop up the economy. Law enforcement is also used to raise money by frivolous arrests or speeding tickets. But
wait a minute, I can't watch TikTok and look at the picture. Can I? Because I don't think it lets me do that. I can do it with YouTube. I don't think I can do it with TikTok. Because TikTok doesn't have like a minimize, you can't minimize the screen on TikTok. I don't think he has a YouTube. Let's see. I really don't think he has a YouTube. Yeah, it won't let me. So, sorry. Maybe we'll listen to
those who build the
find a
community
YouTube
and
video on him.
prevent people from.
That would have been nice.
Who does know those numbers? The agents. They negotiate all those contracts. And
Tired. Now it's 11:36. I don't know if I'm cutting this so close. And I gotta get sleep to get on that road. We watched that one last time. We drew. I actually drew that picture. And I got the live of drawing it, but I drew it on paper. I didn't do it on. so sleepy. I really just want to lay on the bed. This how it be on the visitation night. That's what this is giving me, visitation vibes. How does this is a short, so it's gonna go fast.
Got so bad that I started to sell the furniture in a furnished apartment that I was renting, that I called my dad, or I actually emailed him and told him, like, if you just bail me out this, one last time, I'll get it together.
YouTube shorts don't do minimize
Shoot a long
it.
email, and then, he wrote me back. I got it tattooed on the side of me now, but he said, son, words are easy to say, actions govern our lives. Life is a short trip to a small planet. Life everlasting is your choice. And that always stuck with me, because I wrote him like this 4-page email of how, if you just, I'm going to get it together. And my dad was a man of few words, he didn't communicate much, but he was always there. Got so bad that I started to sell the furniture in a furnished apartment that I was renting, that I called my dad, or I actually emailed him and told
Let's
him,
listen to this.
if you
Let me
just bail
see
me out
it.
this.
At Brent Cassidy. Let's look for his channel. Let's see, can we find the full? Let's see, can we find the full? Okay, let's see. So I need something long to listen to be able to finish this painting, to be motivated and to wake up, because I'm tired. Come on. Or we're going to have to do this in silence. That's not going to be nice. Okay, here's one. Oh, this is from 2 weeks ago. Nightmare success in and out.
Welcome back, Nightmare Success listeners. This is where you come for what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality. How do you adapt, survive, overcome? Well, I have a very interesting guy here today. And I want to give a shout out to Sabrina Morgan, because she actually connected me to Danny and his story. And you guys might have seen Danny, because if you have TikTok, this guy is just wrapping it up on TikTok. He's got over 142,000 followers. And I started following him, and I am always wonder, hey, what's Danny going to say today? I mean, he's very thought-provoking. He's a smart guy.
Well
He talks
spoken.
about all kinds of different things, but I love his posts, and I think that's why he got so many followers. But
So well spoken.
Danny's story is, I mean, he went from the Atlanta Braves to prison, and that sounds fascinating, but his whole story is fascinating. That's just a piece of his story. But he's out now doing great work with his second chance. He's working at a place, I love this idea. It's called Containing Luxury, and it's making tiny homes out of shipping containers, which makes all kinds of sense because there's no inventory on the market. People need homes. These are affordable homes. They look really cool. And Danny's gone, a step further. He's working with nonprofits with this venture, and it's really helping people who are justice impacted. And love everything about it. Can't wait to jump in and unpack all this with Danny. But first, I want to recognize our show sponsor, Auto Plaza Direct. Who likes spending a couple weekends walking car lots looking for a car? Like 4 or 5 hours at the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a trip to the dentist. I'm not talking bad about dentists here. Eddie Logan, if you need a good dentist, he's a good friend of mine. Check him out over in O'Fallon. Well, there's a better way. Take away all the pain and hassle, get a car. It's called Auto Plaza Direct. They're your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price. They also offer you warranties and financing. It's all full service. Go to AutoPlazaDirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them that Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. All right, Danny Collins. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Danny and I had, quite it was some work to get on here today. I think it was on my side, but, we finally got our internet connected. And
It's
I
so
think
low.
we've got good internet, which is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, we're not echoing inside of a container.
Yes, and I love that. I love that whole concept of the containers, because I think, Danny, I was watching something on the news that we send all these containers come over from China and India and whatever, and then they really don't go back, so we just got piles and piles and piles of inventory of containers, and there's
wow.
nothing being done with them, and you guys are taking these things and actually
Brilliant.
and I checked out what these containers look like on the inside. These are actually really nice containers.
Yeah, we do, you build them out nice, yeah. The whole concept is to have something that is, that is somewhat luxurious, but also affordable. So it's like, that's how it's like the intersection of luxury and affordability. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
A really nice, what am I wanting to say? A Winnebago, like one of those tourist buses.
Yeah, so, and that was kind of like, our mindset was to be a direct replacement for either RVs or, single wide trailers, because most of the time those things fall apart. It doesn't take long before you start having issues with them. Whereas their containers are like tanks, I know some people are thinking metal box, but when you see the inside of them, they're nice. Like,
They are really nice. You guys have to check it out. I think you can go to the website that's,
How they hold up them hurricanes?
yeah, containerluxury.com.
Yeah.
Because Florida's known for
Danny,
hurricanes.
I was just telling you, I watched a really interesting, fascinating interview with you with Ian Beck, it's called Locked In, and, I wanna go back to your growing up story, because you have, like,
Trying
we
to
were
hold
talking about
both.
this before we got on, one of the more interesting stories as a kid that I don't think I've ever really heard of anything like what you explained, what happened in the driveway, but can you go back and just kind of let us into Danny Collins growing up, world like, and please don't leave out the story about the driveway story.
Gotcha. So, I was raised in Fort Pierce, Florida, with my dad and my stepmom, but I was raised to believe that my stepmom was my biological mother. I didn't know any different. And, when I was, I would say 5 or 6, I don't know how old I was playing basketball in my house, and these two girls come riding by on a bicycle. One girl points to the other girl and says, "Daniel, that's your sister Rebecca," and they keep on riding. Well, I didn't know how to process that. I was young, didn't really think a whole lot of it, but I ran inside and, continued on with my life. And my house, there wasn't a whole lot of communication. There wasn't a whole lot of affection. There wasn't any of that. My parents never said, "I love you." It was just, there wasn't emotion, anything. And so not too long after that, a girl comes up to me and says, "Daniel, you don't know me. My name's Rebecca, and I'm your sister." And we were at school, and I ended up running completely the opposite direction. And I was young. So if I was able to process this stuff at a young age, I probably would have realized that obviously, they live close to me, they're riding by a bicycle, yeah. So when I first found out that my mom, the lady I was calling my mom, wasn't my mom, it's when I was 9, I had to take a birth certificate to the Little League field to verify my age. And so my dad gave me the birth certificate to give to the coach, and when I looked at the name, I saw that the name of the lady I was calling my mom wasn't the name that was on the birth certificate. So, and, but still young.
I'm curious, like, when that happened, I mean, you can't imagine what was going through your mind, because, I mean, all this time, you think this is your mom.
Mhm.
I don't even know how you process that as a kid, but did you go talk to your dad and say, "Hey, Dad, what do we do? Like, what's going on here? Where's mom?
No.
Mom.
No, so there wasn't communication really, but I started acting out. So I started getting in trouble was one thing. I went to my Little League coach and told my Little League coach that one day I'm going to grow up and play professional baseball for the Braves, specifically said for the Braves. So maybe my mom would want me. And that was kind of the mindset behind that. But like, I never ever said anything to my parents, but I did start acting out and,
Why do you think you didn't, Danny? I mean, that seems like, it seems like to me that if you found out that you weren't the son of this lady that you thought that was your mom and your dad, you have to assume knows the whole story. Was there a reason why, were you intimidated to talk to him about it, or was it just?
I guess there was just, I didn't go to my parents for, to talk about things. There wasn't, my family was very disciplined, had to make straight A's, a lot of rules, like, and yes, I think there was a little bit of fear with my parents. Like, I feared them more than I did, because like I said, there wasn't the affection either. Like, my family was very, strict, and there wasn't the I love you. So to me, like, the whole idea of this concept of love or what that is, it's like, if I behave a certain way, if I perform well, then, the adoration's there, like, it was, but there was this expectation that, like, I always had to be perfect.
Yeah.
And so I never opened up to them.
And
Ever.
then when you can't.
But I
be
did
perfect-
lash out at them. So like there was a time, I think it was about the last time, I used to get spanked with the belt, like it was that time area, and there was a time where I was being disciplined, and I told my mom, I was like, you can't punish me, you're not my real mom. And she started crying, and I kicked her in the shin, and I ran. And my dad chased me down. I ended up throwing a sandwich at him that I had in my hand, and of course, I got my butt beat, and but we didn't talk about it. So then there was another time, and this was the wildest story. So I was dating this girl, and my biological mother's maiden name was Fields. And I was dating this girl, but I still didn't even process this. And I was about 16 or 17 at this time. And this is really where we first acknowledged it, is that I was dating this girl, her name was Crystal, and her last name was Fields, but I didn't put it together, and come to find out, I was related to her in some way. But when I started dating her, my parents were so strict that I had to write down the name of the house, the family of where I was going, the dad's name, phone number, and address, before I could go over there. So when I wrote the name down, my dad looked at the name on the paper and was like, is her dad a cop? It's like, yeah. And he's like, you're not going over there. And I was like, what do you mean I'm not going over there? He said, it has to do with your biological mother. First time in my house.
At this time, Danny, you and your dad haven't even really talked about it.
Never talked about it. I mean, there was times where I think he maybe tried to like talk to me, but like I threw I wouldn't, like there was just,
You can't imagine, I mean, I know all the rest of your story that went on in your life, but this had to be a big deal.
it was a huge deal for me. I had so much resentment, and I had a lot of resentment towards, my stepmom. I never gave her a chance, even though she was the mom in my life, she was, there since I was like 1. So that's how young I was when my biological mother left. So like, I don't remember her at all, obviously. I couldn't tell you, she ended up passing, but I couldn't tell you what she looked like or anything. But I ended up going over to that house anyways. When I went, my dad told me I wasn't over there. And I told her the story of like what happened. And so she went and told her dad, because that's whose name I wrote on the paper. And her dad told her that my mom was like his cousin or something. So this girl ended up being like my second or third cousin. So like, thank God, like I didn't sleep with her at this point. Because, I was young, but I still like, it was like, how do you handle that? And I still didn't know how to process that. You know, she started crying. I ended up leaving the house, but still never talked about it with my family. And
So you think, considering all that stuff that's going on in your head, I mean, that's some wild shit. Do you think that the whole sport thing, the baseball and basketball thing, was that an escape for you to get away from that in your mind?
Gotta be.
I think baseball was just something that I was super passionate about since I was a kid. I loved it. And, you know, again, my parents were strict. I couldn't play other sports organized. I had to pick one sport and like become the best at it. And baseball was kind of the sport that I chose. And, you know, yeah, baseball was definitely like my escape. It was where and it's also where like I received validation and like affection, you know, like because I did well at it, and that's where like I felt like that I was getting, you know, the attention because like I said, my parents were super strict and they worked all the time. Like, you know, I used to have a lot of resentment and blame them for like my issues, but I also understand that like, you know, being a parent doesn't come with the owner's manual, and
Sure.
so. And I recognize that now that I'm older and I've gotten wiser, but I never learned how to process emotions, like, and yeah, so ultimately, I think that was, I always say the gateway to addiction, the gateway drug is not marijuana or alcohol, but it's childhood trauma, you know, and that's what always leads to addiction. And it's unresolved childhood trauma.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to, the one time I went to therapy with my dad, this was after all that, I must have been, I don't know, in my 18, 19, like right around that time, maybe my senior year in high school, I can't even remember when it was. But the conversation of my biological mother was brought up, and my dad started like bawling and crying, and I had never seen him cry before. So that, like, after that meeting, I just never went back. You know, after that session with that therapist, because it was just too much for me. Because I would run away from anything that involved emotions, you know, and involved, you know, talking about feelings or talking about, like, I just didn't, I would freeze up. And I think that's what ultimately led me down the path that I ended up going on.
Yeah, because it's, you know, I want to talk about this because it's so interesting, because I know at some point you realized, hey, I'm pretty good at baseball, and, you know, but I still don't think, you know, in listening to your story, I don't think you believed it, even though everybody around you was starting to say, you know, that this is pretty good, this is a 6'3" guy that can throw the ball and he's left-handed, and, but
Well, go ahead.
But at the other side of things, I think you also had these things you were dealing with, which what you're talking about led into kind of the wild side of maybe your escape through drugs and alcohol and that, so that you were doing both things, both baseball and drugs and alcohol were almost like an escape from your world that you didn't want to tackle, really. They were
Yeah.
deep and dark and all those things that.
Well, that was a big fight in my household too, though, was how I was raised. So, and that was always a fight between my parents, was how I would be disciplined. And I mean, they would get literally like in almost fist fights with each other. Like, and it was always about, my dad was my biggest enabler, and he wanted me to, you know, as long as I played baseball and I did well and I made straight A's, that he would pay my insurance, that he would, you know, give me gas in a car, and I had to work. Whereas my mom was like, you know, my dad used to tell my mom, like, this is going to pay off, it's going to pay for his college, it's going to be play professionally. And my mom was like, you're living in La La Land, this is, you know, 1 in a million, make it. He needs to get a job and learn responsibility. And I think there was some truth to both of them, you know, but it was, you know, as a kid, like, I used to watch them literally fight with each other. And it was always about me. So that's the thing. And I had a sister too in the house that was with my dad and my stepmom. And I can imagine how hard it was for her too to see this all the time, because like it was always a fight between mom and dad about me. And was just about how to parent me. And especially because I was a straight A student, but I also got a lot of trouble. I mean, from elementary all the way up, I was always, just into something. And so, yeah, that was hard. And I didn't really turn into alcohol. I turned into alcohol drugs probably a little bit my senior year, and then, my freshman and sophomore year of college. But like, I didn't really have the means, 'cause we weren't rich by any means. So like, I think it wasn't until like I signed and I got the big contract is when I really, dove headfirst into alcohol and drugs.
Let's talk about that, because I think you were a sophomore in college, and I think the story is really fascinating because you didn't think you were getting drafted, and one of the guys that he was pretty sure he was getting drafted contacted you. You didn't even believe him.
Yeah, I had no idea. So I got drafted my freshman year in college, and back then in baseball they had 50 rounds. So if you were drafted anything after really probably the 10th round or especially the 20th round, you weren't getting anything. Like, it was maybe $1,000 signing bonus. And but yeah, I wasn't expected to get drafted. I probably had the worst season of my life in baseball after my freshman year. I went like 1-4 with a 4.5 ERA. I was partying in college, like had no expectation. And in fact, when he called me, I was partying at the time, and he was watching the draft on the computer. So like, the first couple of days it's on TV, and then when he plays, just pops up on the computer. So he called me and he was like, hey, congratulations, man, you just got drafted by the Braves. And I was like, yeah, right. Like, yeah, he was like, I'm being for real. Like I ended up hanging the phone up on him. And he said, no, I'm being for real. Well, then the next day I got a phone call from a guy by the name of Marco Patti. He said, Mr. Collins, congratulations. This is Marco Patti with the Atlanta Braves, and we selected you in the 45th round of this year's amateur draft. And he goes, now our expectation is not to sign you this year, but we want to do what's called a draft and follow. And that was real big back then, is that if you sign your rights to that team, then they come back out and scout you the next year in college. And the way baseball works is if you go to a junior college, you're draft eligible every year. But if you go to a 4-year school, you're not draft eligible until after your junior year. So
I didn't know that until I was listening to your other interview. I didn't actually realize that. I thought that the 4-year college guys could get drafted at any time. So that was news to me.
Not until they complete their junior year. Whereas like basketball, you could be one and done. You could do your freshman year and go right into the draft. Baseball, the rules were different. But I didn't have a whole lot of 4-year school offers anyways coming out of high school. My high school wasn't great. I did fairly well, with the team that we had, but and I did really well in our summer ball. Like we ended up winning state championship. Like that's really what started to get me on the radar, was after that. And that's when I got the offer to like our local junior college. So then what was so bad is even after my freshman year in college, like I didn't get offered to come back with a scholarship. I had to start looking for other schools. Like that's how bad of a season I had. But I think after I got drafted, of course they're going to ask me to come back because that's going to guarantee scouts are going to be out there. And we had a guy that ended up signing with the Twins or something, a pitcher. So like they were like, the scholarship opened up, you could stay in the dorm. And I ended up going back my sophomore year. In my sophomore year, I had probably the best season of my life outside of maybe my, summer ball when we won the state championship. But like my sophomore year in college, I finished like 10-2.
Yeah, we're just reviewing this video as I paint.
And I happened to throw it in front of a guy by the name of Dayton Moore, who ended up being the general manager for the Kansas City Royals when they won the World Series. But Dayton was the head of minor league operations for the Braves at the time. So he was there, plus the Braves national scouting director, and I threw it down in Miami against Miami-Dade, which was a school known, for being able to hit the ball well. So like, it was just the timing. Yeah, timing was just everything. And I ended up having an agent that told me that he felt like I could sign anywhere from, 500 to 750,000, and he wanted me to hold out. And I ended up signing for a lot less because, again, the way that whole thing works is that you can't technically sign an agent. Like if you hire an agent, then you lose your amateur status. So what they are is financial advisors, and but the team talks directly with you. And then you take whatever information you get and you take it to this financial advisor, and then they give you the advice. But the problem is that when the team's talking to you, they're like, this is all we're gonna offer you. If you don't sign it, you're not gonna, like, it's kind of like that doomsday. So,
Why, what are you thinking at the time? I mean, you're all of a sudden in this new world situation, and I'm not sure what's going on with you on your personal side, because you've actually got some money, and this is a whole thing that you thought about since you were a kid, and said, I'm gonna go to the Atlanta Braves and make my mom love me. So what's going on in your mind through all this?
well, I ended up signing, and it was against my agent's advice, but I called my dad, and my dad's like, you should just sign, you could always go back to school, and this has been your childhood dream, and that's a lot of money, and, so I ended up signing, but it all happened so fast, like, I wasn't consciously thinking at the time, like, what, going on in my life, you know what I mean? Like, I wish I was, like, really aware of, like, how big this was, because I minimized everything. I just kind of went with this is going to happen, this is going to last forever, I'm going to be a multimillionaire, play professional baseball, but not really consciously thinking about the decisions I'm making and how they're going to impact my future, and I signed with my agent. He flew me up to New York, and we went to the Yankees Twins series. This was like in 2003. And I ended up meeting like Peyton Manning, Marcus Allen, Jeremy Shockey, Dave Wells. It was like an eclectic group of people together, and we were at Tao Manhattan. And I remember thinking to myself, and I was in the elevator with George Steinberg, and I remember thinking to myself, like, I had arrived, like, this is it, like, I'm here. And, but really, I had so much more work to do, because I was just in rookie ball of the minor leagues. And at that level, everybody can play, and it's a matter of what you're doing off the field to prepare yourself for your future. And I was hanging out with drug dealers back home, like, I would go to spring training and literally drive back, because our spring training was in Orlando, and I would drive back to my hometown of Fort Pierce, which was 2 hours away, at midnight, to go get some coke and hang out and party, and then drive all the way back and have to be at the field at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day. There was even a time where I was so bad that I ended up passing out on the field, in spring training. I was so malnourished. I was like 155 pounds. 6 foot. I couldn't even get the ball to home plate. Like, this is how, like, I had to, like, get it back together real quick, because I didn't work out in the off season. Like, I was caught up in the wrong crowd, and I went back home, and it just happened, like I said, it happened so fast,
And you had money too, I think at that time. I mean, it was like,
A decent amount of money for a 19-year-old kid, I think the very first check I got was just one check for like $62,000, then I got another check for $62,000, plus I had another $40,000 for school. So, like, I mean, for me growing up poor and living paycheck to paycheck with my parents, to now having a good decent check, chunk of cash, like, it was like, and with the thought that, like, now I'm gonna make a whole bunch more, like, and that was always like the carrot on the stick, is that, this is just the beginning.
when you passed out on the field and you're malnourished, I mean, are you thinking, did I really mess this up? Or are you thinking, well, they're gonna give me a second chance, I'll be able to work?
I'm not even thinking about any of that. They don't even know what is going on with me. And that's the problem. I was so wrapped up in addiction at the time that I didn't even know it. And even if you tried to tell me, I wouldn't listen. Like, you couldn't tell me nothing. Like, I thought that I had it going on. Like, I was partying. I remember going out with the guys and stuff, and I came back, and you had people like Jeff Francoeur and Brian McCann, and these are, big league prospects. and they're kind of looking at me like, this guy's crazy. You know, like I had different like girls coming back to the hotel. Like it was just, I was caught up in the lifestyle of being rich and famous, but I'm nowhere near that, you know, because I'm delusional at the
You're
time.
living the lifestyle.
I'm living the lifestyle and thinking that, you know, this is it. But I was so, yeah, so when they finally released me, because at first they didn't, they suspended me indefinitely. And I just kept getting in trouble. They finally said, you can't go out, you know, like if you get caught with anything else, you know, like this is it. And I ended up going out where other people got in trouble, got in a fight, and I happened to be there. And once my name got back to it, they ended up suspending me. But there was even a time where they had to come, we're in the hotel in spring training, and they had to come cut the chain on my door. I wouldn't go to the field because I was so like hungover and messed up from, you know, weeks of partying. And Braves officials like came and, you know, cut the chain on my door and to get in to like be like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? And yeah, like I was just way out of control.
At that point, Danny, are you thinking, holy shit, what, or is it just, you're in such a spiral that it's
Such a
just-
spiral, yeah. And most people, when they're in that spiral, like they don't see it. Obviously, if they did, they would. If they had the ability to consciously sit down and think about what their life, you know, what they're doing with their life, like and that's the reality of addiction. You know, like addiction will grab a hold of you and it will completely destroy you, your life. And I say it all the time, addiction's only disease powerful enough to affect people that don't even have it. So it was making like my family sick, it was making the people around me sick, like because of course they're trying to help me, you know, they're trying to talk sense into me, but I'm just thinking like I'm playing professional baseball, this is, you know, I was arrogant, but I was at the same time really insecure and again, it was just I didn't know how to process emotions. I didn't know how to process feelings. And the one thing that always worked for me was the alcohol and the drugs. Like that's what.
When they cut that chain and you go back, what do you do?
They ended up suspending me indefinitely. So when I went back home, I went right back to the same drug dealer friends. I was living in a house with 3 different drug dealers. It was basically a trap house. And, you know, we had at any given time, there could probably be a quarter key of coke in there, guns everywhere. Like it was just, that's the lifestyle that I thought that, you know, I'm going to live. And it was just insanity, really. And, you know, when they suspended me indefinitely, my agent's trying to get it back together. He's telling me to go work out. I'm skipping workouts, like, and after a few months, I started working with my dad a little bit, and you know he's trying to talk to me. And after a few months, the Braves called me up to let me know that they were releasing me. And by then I was just too far gone. The next few months, I'm homeless, like in the streets, spent all the money, like that's how fast the spiral was, and it was just bam, 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 and before you know it, it's over with.
Homeless.
Oh, probably a few years, technically. I mean, couch surfing, living with other people, living with a girlfriend, you know, got so bad that I even took the money that the Braves gave me to go back to school. I went to the University of South Florida, spent all the money there, got so bad that I started to sell the furniture in a furnished apartment that I was renting, that I called my dad, or I actually emailed him and told him, like, bail me out this, you know, one last time, I'll get it together. I wrote him this super long email, and then, you know, he wrote me back, and I got it tattooed on the side of me now, but he said, son, words are easy to say, actions govern our lives. Life is a short trip to a small planet. Life everlasting is your choice. And that always stuck with me, because I wrote him like this 4-page email of how, if you just, you know, I'm going to get it together. My dad was a man of few words, you know, he didn't communicate much, but he was always there. You know, my dad's the one that raised me. When my biological mother left, he dropped out of law school to raise me. and he worked at a grocery store, you know, for years before he started working for Kraft Foods
Wow.
and corporate America, and but he was always, you know, the person that I could call on that was there. If I was in trouble, he's come to pick me up. There was times where like I was homeless in different cities. Like I'd be in, you know, a trap house in Jacksonville, on the east side of Jacksonville in Springfield, and you know, I'd call my dad and he'd come pay like my dope bill and pick me up from the house. And so many times, like I put them through so much, you know, emotional pain and just financial strain, and just I spend all my money, and I'm starting to get in trouble. Like minor arrests had started, but it progressively got worse. And that was the other thing too, is that early on when I was getting arrested, they thought that they were protecting me, so they'd slap me on the wrist. And this is before the you know, the age of social media, because
Right.
now the stuff that I did, like immediately they would have released me, like immediate, because it would have just been too much negative attention. But the amount of privilege that I had in that, and that's something else that I look at, is that because of my status as a professional baseball player, you know, I got arrested for possession of cocaine. You know, they slapped me on my wrist and let me go, because they always thought that he's going to get back to his career, he's going to get back to his
All right.
yeah, and it just never happened because I didn't get the help that I needed. And before you know it is when I'm looking at prison. You know, I get in a high-speed chase, and
Well, we've got to talk about this high-speed chase because it's like, you know, some of this stuff, Danny, that you talk about, you see in movies. And this high-speed chase thing, first of all, you're lucky you're alive. I mean, I can't really believe that this all happened and you survived, but walk the listeners through what happened that day and what was, how it happened.
so obviously I was homeless at this time. Basically, I was living out of my truck. I was working for a company out of Jacksonville. I was doing marketing. I was in their work truck, living out of it. Yeah, and the girlfriend that I was with is the person that I'm married to now, and we're actually separated. But she had kicked me out, right? Because I was actively using. You can't come back here, so I'm living out of this truck, and I'm kind of in and out living with my friend back home. But my friend's also on the side, you know, hustling drugs, and I'm getting, you know, drugs from him. And finally, he's like cutting me off, and he's like, "Dude, you got to get it together." And I get mad. I got a bunch of stuff over at his house. He's not there. I go to the house. It's late. I knock on the door. His girlfriend's sister answers the door, and I'm like, "Hey, can I come in and get some of my stuff? I got it here." And she's like, "Yeah, you know." So I go in there. I grab my stuff. I go into his safe. I grab some stuff out of his safe. I tuck it in my shoe. I grab some jewelry and other stuff, and then I end up leaving. Well, when I leave, I'm like, dang, I should have grabbed everything. So I still had a bunch of my stuff there, my clothes, everything. So now when I go back, I knock on the door again. She opens up the door, but she's on the phone, and she has a look on her face like she knows that like I'm not supposed to be there. So I take it upon myself to walk in the door. She doesn't say anything to me, but you can tell she's on the phone with probably him. I grab more stuff, my stuff. I go to leave. Now here he comes around the corner. I hurry up and get in the truck, and I take off. But his girlfriend, you know, calls the cops. As I'm leaving, I'm gonna go south where my girlfriend's living at the time, even though she doesn't want me there. But like now, I'm in addiction. I'm not thinking clearly. There's no clarity. I'm not making sound decisions. As I'm going to make a turn to go onto the road to go to I-95, there's a cop coming, and we're the only two people on the road. And I'm going to turn right, and I see he's got his left turn signal on, so I say, you know what, I'm just going to keep going straight. Well, when I go straight, I look in my rearview mirror, I see he stops in the road. And now I know he's turning around. So before he can even turn around, I start taking off. Because I know he's coming for me. And when I take off, next thing you know, here he comes behind me with the sirens. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm not stopping. You know, they're going to have to kill me. Like, this is it. Like, my life was in such disarray, it was so dysfunctional.
Yeah, you didn't care about living at that time, I remember.
Yeah, I didn't care. Like, I did not care about living, I lost all hope.
You were like, I don't, in fact, you took some opportunities and didn't get through it, but you were in that mindset, you
Yeah.
didn't care.
Yeah, because I had already, at that point, already had multiple suicide attempts where I, shot a gun off in my best friend's house, like, ended up going through the house, could have hurt somebody else, thank God it didn't, and, obviously I'm still here, but, I hauling butt down this road, obviously the cops coming behind me fast, I start turning off on a bunch of back roads, and I turn the headlights off, but every time I'm hitting the brakes, the cops on me again. So I end up coming to a dead-end road, cops behind me, get out of the car, like with their guns drawn, and I'm looking and I'm like, this is it, like, I'm not stopping, like, they're gonna have to kill me. So I dropped the truck into it's a little four-banger, 5-speed Nissan Frontier, company truck that I'm in, and I put it in first gear, I whip it around, and now I'm facing in the direction of the cops, and, by the grace of God, I didn't hit any of them. I managed to get through without hitting them, and they didn't shoot me, and I kept driving. But now I'm like, I gotta figure out a way to get these brake lights off, because every time I hit the brakes, they're on me. So I get this bright idea that I'm gonna start pulling fuses. So I'm reaching down for the fuse box, cops are chasing me. I look up and the road ends. There's like a mound of dirt with signs in it, that are pointing, you gotta go left or right. Like there's no
Straight.
And I went straight. And I went up, I caught air. I tried to turn the wheel last minute. So when I landed, the truck was facing back towards the canal, but I hit the water. So I hit water, my head hits the windshield, I start panicking. There's a bunch of water coming in the truck. I'm freaking out. Now all of a sudden, these thoughts of suicide, not wanting to live, self-preservation kicks in. Like now I'm doing whatever I can to survive. And I start swallowing a bunch of water because I'm panicking. But I can't get the doors open, I can't get the windows open. Truck starts sinking, and there's a hatch in this truck, and there's a camper on the back. So I don't know if I punched the glass or if I just went through, if it broke on impact, but I have a scar right there. I don't know if you can see it.
It's a huge scar.
Yeah, it's a huge scar, and it, right on my hand, I ended up going through like this hatch, and I feel like somebody like pulls me through. And I go to swim up.
Okay, hold on 1 second. About to start the hair. Look good?
The website.
Trying to find the same video so I can get us here the same way. Oh, there it is. This video here. Okay, there it is. I gotta loosen that up to get to the hair. Okay, so let's go back to, oh, I'm sorry, let's screenshot. Okay, now let's go back to the YouTube. Finish listening to the story. I'm gonna adjust that so that I can start on the hair. I might actually have to stop it because y'all know it's hard for me to download them after they're an hour long. So yeah, let's just stop this one. And I'll be right back. It's your girl Ken.